This is Almost 107, a Fanshawe College journalism student podcast. Get real.
Hello, and welcome back to the Almost 107 podcast. My name is Logan Bucher, and I'll be your host for the evening. Today we'll be spreading our wings and flying into the world of animal rehabilitation with Salthaven. Salthaven is an animal rehabilitation center that focuses on, animal rehabilitation. They educate the public about what to do if you find an animal in your lawn, and if it seems injured, then they may be the best place to call about what to do. They also rehabilitate animals themselves and take care of the animals there. I'll be speaking to the founder of Salthaven himself, Brian Salt, and a member of the team named Brittany Leach. She focuses on the educational ambassadors they have there, such as their birds of prey. Let's get into it.
My name is Brittany Leach, and I work here at Salthaven as our raptor manager, as well as the manager of our wildlife ambassadors.
When working with animals every day, have you noticed that you've become more in tune with reading the body language of animals?
Definitely. So throughout the different avenues of my work, body language behavior is essential to everything that we do. It gives us an insight into the animals' lives, how they're thinking, feeling, and this allows us to better prepare ourselves for medicinal needs for our patients, as well as the needs of our welfare of our ambassadors. So, everything from enrichment to daily training, you need to be very aware of the animals that you work with from a species perspective, but also from an individual basis. Every animal is different. They're just like humans, which is rather a unique component of our job, and it allows us to very specifically tend to their personal needs.
Yeah, and when you mentioned ambassador, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so wildlife ambassadors are animals that travel to the public, so schools, libraries, businesses, and they help us to educate and further, just to educate the public about conservation at large. But by working with an animal that has been specifically raised to be with people, we provide a very intimate connection to those individuals. So we have three birds of prey. We have one groundhog who's in training, as well as one snake. So these are the animals that you typically see if you come to one of our presentations.
Yeah, what goes into training these animals?
A lot. So it depends on the species, depends on their personal background. Often we start them quite young. That's not always the case. Gus, our black rat snake, she came to us at about a year old, and we don't know her background, so she's a little bit of a unique case where we didn't have her hand raised specifically by humans in a very controlled manner. A lot of our animals do come from registered breeders or facilities that's what they do. They raise animals for the purpose of education. And we start them usually quite young to get them comfortable, get them used to being out in the public. And it depends on what we're doing with them and kind of what capacity we're working with them. Sometimes our birds are free-flighted, and we do that primarily on property right now, but free-flighted for educational purposes as well. Having them on the glove and just getting them used and comfortable to see people. But it's very, very individualized, and it depends on the venue as well and what we're doing with the animals. But it takes a lot of teamwork, a lot of positive reinforcement is primarily what we focus on here, and just kind of building that trust.
At what point in your life did you figure out that this is what you wanted to do?
I love this question. So I started at Salthaven when I was in grade 9. So I was really young. I was 15, and I knew I loved animals from a very young age. I think it was just something that fascinated me. But when I started volunteering at Salthaven, very quickly I knew that this was more of a career path, less of always an interest, but I knew that's what I wanted to dedicate my life to. And it was because of Salthaven that I actually went to Western. I got my degree in environmental science. I've been very fortunate. I've traveled Canada working with different species in different capacities, everything from rehabilitation to conservation and research, public education. Very young age, and it's kind of a neat full circle coming back to Salthaven now, having that sparked my interest, and now I work here full time.
This line of work can't be easy most of the time. What's kind of the hardest part about working here?
It's a good question. I would say definitely the euthanasia and the not so nice parts of what we do. I would say the vast majority of cases of animals that we get in come in due to human impact. So this could be window strikes, car strikes, cat or dog attacks. Sometimes it is unfortunately malicious intent. Some people harm animals on purpose. So going through that, and I think seeing both the good and bad of human nature is tough, and you need to compartmentalize that and be able to do your job well. Euthanasia or death in and of itself is not nice, but it's a part of what we do, and I think we try to keep that very logical mindset of euthanasia is sometimes the most appropriate course of action to mitigate pain. Of course, it's not nice. We do a lot of evaluation before that's determined as the best course of action for an animal. But there's the emotional toll of sometimes you go home and there can be days where you see things that you wish you didn't. But I think you need to keep that in perspective of what we do and why. There are so many people out there that care. And there's so many animals that we have saved, and that can help us to balance it out.
Yeah. How does that impact you personally? Like, how do you handle that?
I think as I go along in my career, at first it was very hard, and I found burnout and emotional fatigue hit me very hard, and it took me a little while to build that resiliency and to kind of understand it's part of what we do. It's not nice, but it's part of what we do. So for me, I definitely try to provide myself perspective of what we do and why, and also give that little bit of personal time when I'm not here, and focus on my mental and physical health too, making sure that if I'm not doing well, then how can I serve the animals well? So being mindful and aware of that. But I think the more you do it, it's not that you get stone cold to it or anything of that sort, but it does give you that perspective of the tough calls that you make them for a reason, and then you can kind of compartmentalize from there.
Yeah, it's all for the benefit of the animal, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's always the focus.
What does animal care mean to you?
Oh, as a whole?
Yeah, just like in general.
I would say animal care to me means a high level of welfare and quality of life. Those are two components. It doesn't matter if I'm working with a patient or with a wildlife ambassador. Welfare and quality of life are the two of the main components that I always focus on. So how can we do the best for the animal, essentially? What decisions are we making? Is it nutrition? Is it enclosure? Is it medicinal needs? Are we meeting those? Are we exceeding those? Or how can we make them better? And those are the two components that I focus on most commonly to kind of steer me in the right direction, I would say. And if we feel as though, either of these components are limiting, how do we make them better? And science is forever changing. I think that's what's amazing about what we do, is there's always new information. And through that information, scientific information, we can continue to provide the highest level of quality of care possible. And try to make our animals' lives as best as they possibly can.
Yeah. Hi, it's me again. After that interview, Brittany decided to take me on a tour of the facilities and show me around and let me know what goes on behind the scenes at Salthaven.
So oftentimes we get blind squirrels in the winter because they're trying to nest and keep warm. They nest together. So we'll find them in attics and that kind of thing. And then they come into us, but they need to overwinter with us because you can't just release them back into the cold. And then in the rest of this room, this is our laboratory room. So this is where all of our incubators stay. This is for critical care patients, so patients that come in shocky or otherwise compromised to a state in which they can't thermoregulate, something of that sort. They go in here. And we do have laboratory equipment such as microscopes, which we are able to use in a variety of ways. So if we're looking, let's say, at a fecal sample to see if an animal has a parasite or something of that sort, that comes in handy as well. So this is where we keep many of our donations, actually. It's important in that way. This is many of our donations that we receive from the public. We're very, very fortunate to have a lot of support from businesses and individuals giving us towels and medicinal supplies, food for our animals, and this is where our stock goes. Probably 90% of all items in this room are actually donated, so we're incredibly fortunate. And we always have people call, the public is amazing because they will call quite readily and just, it will be the same person, just, do you have enough of this? Or sometimes it will be a business that just has overstock or so on and so forth. In cages, most of these have all been donated as well. So with our fox, just as a general background on him, so he came in about a month ago now, just shy of a month, and he had severe mange, so he was found on the side of the road, and a very kind individual stopped their car and picked him up from a ditch essentially.
So as you know, bats would typically sleep during the day. Hi. So this is Peggy. She's making noise because I woke her up. They have a very bad reputation, but they're actually very gentle. Is a clump of bats. And that's how they would naturally roost in the wild, right? These are big brown bats. They're called crevice bats, which means they would find a warm spot until spring. As I said, otherwise they'll starve to death.
And then is this just to humidify the room?
Yes, because again, we don't want their skin to dry out because their wings are leathery and very, very thin.
So this is our tub room. So this is a multi-purpose room. So it does house our reptiles. So Gus, our black rat snake ambassador, this is her enclosure. And we also have, we call it our tub room because this has our bathtub, which is actually used for primarily our semi-aquatics. So if we get anything like a toad, for kind of short-term use, we can do this for turtles. This is one of the busiest rooms in Salthaven. This is our food preparation room. So this is where all the diets for all of our animals are made. And as I said, we see everything from hummingbirds to bald eagles to muskrats, to skunks and everything in between. So we have a highly varied diet to tend to, and we need to make sure that those nutritional needs are being met appropriate to our species. So this is essentially what we want to do to what the fox is in. So making it another really long flight pen. It allows them a space to stretch their legs. And this component of rehabilitation is critical because if you were to take an animal in human care and simply release them from being in a cage, that natural instinct may not be there and those natural behaviors may not be there.
In winter, is it harder to, bring them out here and get them active?
Sometimes, depending on, so when it got really, really cold and snowy, we had a couple, I guess, instances of that. Animals do, just like humans, they become more resting, I guess. They rest more. So depending on circumstance, sometimes we do pull the animals in very inclement weather because if they're compromised in any way, we don't want to just stick them outside, we'll pull them back in. And then we have 2 mews on property. So mews is an English term. It's meant to basically just signify an area for birds of prey. So this is where our birds come when they're sick. We have 2 mews separate. The one to our left is for our patients. The one to our right ahead of us is for our ambassadors. The reason why they're kept separate is, again, to limit disease spread between our permanent residents and our wild animals. Yeah, so these are specifically made for birds of prey. So our hawks, our eagles, our owls, our falcons, our vultures. And this is kind of like a pre-release idea, very similar to the flight pens that we were just speaking about for raptors. So that sharp-shinned hawk, for instance. So when he gets to a point that he can mobilize, that he's doing well, instead of staying in that hawk box, he would mobilize and move out to a mews. And that way he can fly around. There's much less human interaction and we're kind of preparing him essentially for release. And so much, as a nonprofit charity, so much of what you see is just due to the generosity of the general public. It's grants and it's funding and fundraising on our part as well. But so much of it is the helping hands of, we have maintenance and we have garden individuals and so many components that rely on individuals essentially or the public to make our essential work continue. This is where most of my time is spent. This is Astra. She is our great horned owl ambassador. And she is the newest member to our education team. So she came to us in 2024 and she is almost 2 years old now.
What does that bobbing side to side mean?
So that's actually a way for her to zone in on what's going on around her. So owls are really neat depending on the species. Some owls will have symmetrical ears, some have asymmetrical ears, but regardless of that, you'll often notice they're doing kind of a bobbing motion to locate more precisely whatever it is that they're listening to. But this is Spirit. Good morning. So Spirit is a very interesting story because he actually started as a patient. He came in after hitting a high tension hydro pole when he was under a year old. And due to the extent of his injuries, you'll notice that he is missing his right wing. He also doesn't have his left eye.
Brian Salt. I'm the founder and director here at Salthaven Wildlife.
Yeah, and then as the founder of Salthaven, what would you say has been most fulfilling part of your journey?
Well, of course, working with the animals and also seeing people's attitudes change towards the environment, which is really important. Every new generation has a new normal, you know, and that's kind of scary, because for an old guy like me, normal is what it was like, 30, 40 years ago. But the new normal is kind of scary, actually. So the environment, we breathe the same air, we drink the same water. When we're helping the environment and animals in it, we're really helping ourselves too.
Being a non-profit organization, do you find it challenging at times to keep doing what you're doing? Like, what kind of helps keeps this place afloat? Would that being like sponsors or donations or anything like that?
Yeah, it's been a long haul. We're supported. Salthaven has become a community endeavor. It's not just one person or a few people that are making it happen here. It's a whole community of people that donate their time and resources, financial donations that make it all work. But in the beginning, Salthaven had no credibility whatsoever. We were just a name.
And so, being the founder and owner of Salthaven, what kind of goes into that? I know you have a lot of volunteers and a lot of supervisors with you, but what specifically about owning Salthaven is the hardest part?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of hours, and sacrificing your personal life, I think, is really part of it all. But that's the hardest part is that balance, between family and home and work here at Salthaven. And especially when you love what you do, there's always that danger that you become heavy on one side or the other, which isn't healthy either. So, trying to keep a balance is one of the most difficult things. I mean, I love what I do here, and I've always loved what I do. I've been very blessed that way, and that almost everything that I've done in my life I have loved doing, and so it's been easy for me to get up in the morning and get excited about going to work. But I think, that balance would be the thing I think is probably one of the harder things to keep. Because, you got a grandson's hockey game, and you got a bald eagle that just came in that needs help right away, otherwise he's going to die. They're both important, but how do you go about rationalizing one or the other? So, yeah.
Right, must be very difficult for you.
Sometimes.
Thank you for listening. My name is Logan Bucher, and you can find other episodes of Almost 107 on our website, 106.9thex.com, or you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.